God of mercy and grace, we confess that we have tried to manage our lives on our own. We have trusted our preferences, our plans, and our control, and they have not made us whole. Today we come not with certainty, but with willingness. We acknowledge that our will often leads us toward what's easiest, not what is true or life-giving. We have an opportunity to make a decision. We choose to turn our will and our lives over to your care as we understand you. With open hands and outstretched arms, we release what we cling to and trust that you will catch us, lead us, shape us, and make us whole. Amen. Well, good morning. My name is Paul. I'm one of the pastors here at Central Avenue United Methodist Church in Athens, Ohio. It's really good to be with you. So we are in a series of teachings based around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we're taking several weeks to look at these steps not simply as a recovery tool, but as an invitation to discipleship, to wholeness. To look at it as a kind of pattern for living, a pattern that is deeply rooted in the life of Jesus, the witness of Scripture, and the practice of the early church, what is often called by the church a rule of life. And so over these weeks together, we're going to devote ourselves to some practices, relationships, and experiences that millions before us have used to find life and wholeness. Now, as we move further into these subsequent steps, last week I shared with you one of my biggest fears around this series, and honestly why I almost didn't do it. My fear is that we would come to believe, even for a moment, that this sitting here listening to this series was sufficient. That just listening to the series, even if you're tuning in every Sunday, was, as they say in the recovery community, working the steps. That you would think that just listening to this series could be helpful or formative, when in fact, just listening to this series could form you, can form us in negative ways. See, what happens is, if we're not careful, we will confuse listening with faithfulness. Hearing a sermon as if it was the same thing as living it. Friends, learning about the 12 steps is not the same as doing or practicing the 12 steps. And I think this is particularly true for step 4, and actually the rest of what are the action steps, steps 4 through 12. So I want to do just a bit of review again, just to kind of go over where we've been. First, the first week we looked at the first of the 12 steps. We admitted that we're powerless over our attraction to do wrong and that our lives have become unmanageable. So we admitted that we're powerless over our attraction to do wrong and our lives have become unmanageable. We said that step 1 is really the acceptance of reality, spiritual reality. And the reality is, you and I are broken. Although we were created in the image of God, that image has been marred, and therefore there is a kind of brokenness to us. And what that means is, eventually we discover that I'm not in control of my world. On my own, I cannot manage my life to wholeness. We're powerless, and our lives have become unmanageable. But here's the thing. If we're going to be on a path to wholeness and healing, that's not enough. It's an important realization, but it's not an excuse. Step 1 is important. We're broken, but we're not left in our brokenness. Whereas the first step acknowledges brokenness, the second step says that we don't have to be defined by our brokenness, that our brokenness doesn't have to have the last word. Step 2 says that came to believe in a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So I'm broken, I need healing, I sin, I have some areas of insanity in my life, I do things that I don't want to do, and I don't do the things I want to do, but I've come to believe that there is a power greater than myself that can bring wholeness. So all people are broken, but all broken people can be made whole. Now, we've said that the first 2 steps are really largely we're engaged in reflection. The first two steps are realizations. I saw that I was powerless, but I saw a kind of higher power that I came to believe in, that there was hope, that I don't need to be defined by my brokenness. But these first two steps don't require action. They only require acceptance. But like all the remaining steps, step 3 calls us to action. Step 3, we learned, said that we made a decision. There's a decision involved. Step 3 says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So we made a decision to turn our will, our desires, our hopes, our dreams, our agendas, our wants, and our lives, our actions, our thoughts, our words, our deeds. We made a decision that we're going to turn these things over. So in step 3, we move from reflection and realization to action. An important bit of clarification, though. There is this tendency to think that the third step says that we turned our will and our lives over to the care of God. But it doesn't say that. What it says is that we made a decision to do so. We made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand him. And this is why this distinction is so important. Yes, there is a decision. Yes, we have to choose. And by the way, to not choose is to choose. But that decision alone does not bring about healing and wholeness. I will also need to take the steps necessary, the actions necessary. By the way, this is steps 4 through 12. Steps 4 through 12 are the living out of the decisions we made in step 3. So the goal is not just to make a decision. The goal is that we actually do turn our lives and our wills over to the care of God. So starting in step 4, we live out that decision. We flesh out that decision. We make it real. What does it look like to turn your life and your will over to the care of God? Well, it starts by making a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And this is what I asked us to start into last week. Last week, I asked you to make a fearless and searching moral inventory of yourself. The psalmist says it this way. This is Psalm 139. He says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offense or wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." Now, last week I said that I wanted to give you 2 weeks to finish this step. I want to clarify what I meant by that. What I really want you to do is I want you to get started on this step. Again, to not just think that listening to this series is enough, but I want to be clear that you probably can't do this completely in 2 weeks. For many people, they say it will take weeks to sometimes even months or more to actually fully do this step. It takes some consistent thought. It takes some consistent time, maybe even mark an hour or a half an hour a day. Now, although most people who do this never assign a time frame to complete it, there's kind of 2 extremes that happens. The first is that you rush it, which usually means that you create something that's superficial and you're defensive, it's incomplete. The second thing that happens is you drag it out, which often is about avoidance disguised as being thorough. So I'm actually curious if any of you tried doing a 4th step this week. And if so, I want to urge you, if you want to just say, I did it, and put it in the chat, or I started, maybe make some observations, things you'd like to share. Feel free that you just do that as we share this together and move on. So last week, I started walking you through this guide that I put online. Again, you can find this guide on our website, centralavenue.net. This guide is sort of the standard way that a 4th step is done. I'm going to show you a bit more of that today, but I want to remind you that in this case, Google can be your friend. And I'm quite serious about this. There are tons of forums and videos out there on how to do this. But the pages I gave you are kind of the standard way that this is done. It's probably the most popular way. It's taken from what's called the Big Book, and it's been adapted. It's used by a bunch of different groups and organizations. And this is how it goes. With this way of doing the 4th step, I don't start by listing the things that people have done to me, and I don't start by listing my sins and shortcomings and stuff. Instead, I remember what other people have done wrong to me. So it's exactly opposite of what I just said. I remember what other people, my resentments is the way this is put. And this may seem strange, but it's actually kind of brilliant when you do it. It's sort of counterintuitive. But remember that listing your resentments, working through your resentments is just the first step. So if you haven't done this yet, print out the guide I gave you or just get out a piece of paper. And I want you to put 4 columns. The first column is I resent. The second is for what, or the cause of the resentment. The third is what it affects, what was threatened, what happened in me. And then the 4th column is my part. What was my response to the hurt? What was my part in doing this? What did I do wrong? And if you weren't here last week, I want to urge you to listen to the message that I did last week. It's available online on our website as well. By the way, for some reason, the guide that I uploaded last week, I left off some pages, so I gave Andrea a new guide to upload. I want to encourage you to download that from our website this week. It's more complete. The next page is to work through our fears. Our fears. And for some reason, this one has been particularly eye-opening to me lately. When it comes to fears, the first column is, what am I afraid of? And you just kind of list your fears. The second column is, why do I have this fear? And some of these may actually tie back into some of your resentments. The third one is, what part of myself was threatened? What part of me was threatened? And then, where did I rely on myself rather than God? And again, you just work through this page and you list out as many of these as you can. You're just cataloging. Again, this seems like a lot, but the goal here is that you're looking for emerging patterns. Remember, progress over perfection. The next step, according to the Big Book of AA, is around sexual conduct. Now, the purpose of this page is not to catalog your behavior and induce guilt, but to simply get us to tell the truth about how our desires have shaped us and our relationships. And in the Big Book, it says that you're to review your sexual conduct over the past years and see where desire has become disconnected from honesty or responsibility or love. And again, this inventory is to help us notice patterns. Where do we use intimacy to manage fear or loneliness? Or where has secrecy replaced openness? Where have our actions affected other people or ignored them? And again, you work through this in columns. The first column is the relationship or situation. Second column is where was I selfish or dishonest or inconsiderate. Third column is who was hurt. And the fourth column is what responsibility or care. What would responsibility or care have looked like? And again, you're just cataloging this stuff. It is a searching and fearless and searching moral inventory, right? The last page is kind of a summary, and it sort of sets us up for subsequent steps down the line. This is where we actually list those that we have harmed, other people we have harmed. And again, 4 columns. Column 1 is the person or relationship that I harmed. And just write it down. Again, you're going to need more than 1 page. And then the second one is what I did or failed to do. The third is how has it affected them. And then the fourth is my part. What motivated me. And again, at this point, you're just taking inventory. You're asking God to search you, to know you. But as you're doing this, you might want to at least start to ask, is there any action that I'm being called to take in this situation? Is there someone that I should talk to? Is there some action I should take, some information I require? If you need wise counsel, you can decide who you should approach for it. So friends, these pages are the first way of doing a fourth step. By the way, what I just went over you is the one that's most used by AA. Don't be afraid of it, just give it a shot. The other way that many people do this step is to use what are called the 7 deadly sins. This list it actually kind of came out of a group of monks, sometimes called the Desert Fathers, particularly a guy named Ponticus, another monk named, what was his name? Cassian. Yeah, Cassian. If you know Peter Smith, he's doing a lot of his doctoral dissertation around that, writes a lot about Cassian, would be really upset that I forgot his name for a minute. And then much later, around 1250, a guy you may have heard of, Thomas Aquinas, wrote a fair amount around this as well. So this is not a message on the 7 deadly sins. You could easily do a single message on each one of these. In fact, I have done this before. But here are the classic 7 deadly sins. There's actually some variety in these. Their wording is sometimes used a little differently. Different wording highlights different nuances of each sin. Some lists actually include an 8th sin, oddly enough, which is sadness, which I totally reject. For the same reason that the church has rejected it throughout most of history, is that it doesn't seem to be supported very much by Scripture, the idea that being sad is a sin. Again, it's a little deeper than that, but these are often considered root sins that other sins spring from. And so the 7 deadly sins are pride, which is excessive belief in one's own ability. This is at the heart of step 1. Greed, which is a desire, usually considered a desire for material wealth or gain or even power, greedy for power over the needs of others. The third is lust, which is intense, uncontrolled sexual desire. The fourth is envy, which is a desire for someone else's traits or status or abilities or situation. The next is gluttony, which is overindulgence or an overconsumption, usually of food or drink. The next one is wrath, uncontrolled feelings of anger, rage, or hatred. And then the last is sloth, which is laziness, but it's more spiritual apathy. It's a failure to use one's talents to step forward to do what God is calling you to do. And so the final pages of this inventory are those 7 deadly sins, which, quite honestly, this is what I actually use more often than not. Not because it's better, it just works for me. And it's a bit quicker for me, and so I can use them as sort of a checkup. So here's what I want you to do. And again, these are online. I want to encourage you to download these. If you look at each of these pages that you get, at the top is the sin, and then there's a very brief definition. Again, if you struggle with understanding what it means, you can Google around a bit. Don't use that as an excuse from doing the tool, learning more. And then there are a few reflection questions, kind of probing things to get you thinking. And by the way, I didn't write these, just so you know. I don't know where they came from. This kind of thing has been around for years. So there are reflection questions and then just some examples of each of these, again, just to get you thinking. There's nothing special or magical about this tool, but I remind you that this is something that you should do prayerfully and in conversation with God. So I just want to walk through these very quickly. I hate to be reading the handouts to you, but I think it's important we do this. So these are in no particular order, other than that usually pride is first. Pride is usually the one that is sort of the root that everything starts from. And so the first is pride. It's an over-centering on self. And then there are just some questions. Where do I need to be right or admired or affirmed? The second is, where did I project an image rather than telling the truth? The third is, where do I resist correction, feedback, or dependence on others? And so, just as examples, the things you should be looking for are things like explaining myself or preparing for the next clever thing to say rather than actually listening to people. Hiding mistakes to look competent, covering up mistakes, or feeling diminished when I'm overlooked or criticized. And so just kind of read through that, and then there's some space for reflection and notes, and just make some notes. Make a searching and fearless moral inventory. The next is sloth, which is, sloth is not just taking a nap, okay? We should have good boundaries. We should work on those kinds of things. Rest is a good thing. But sloth is more avoiding work, the work of love and presence with people. The inability to bring yourself forward into a situation. So just some questions. Where did I avoid what I knew was necessary, but it made me uncomfortable? That's kind of the idea behind sloth. Where did I numb or distract or disengage instead of showing up? Where did I delay change that I knew was needed? Those questions get more around the idea of sloth than where did I nap too much kind of thing, okay? So that's sloth. And then just some examples is just putting off a hard conversation indefinitely, particularly. Like, I don't want to do this, so I'm just not going to do it. Or staying busy to avoid this, to avoid interior work or thought or emotional work or life with God. Next is just saying things like, this is just how it is, instead of acting. Those are examples of sloth. Next is greed. Greed is clutching instead of trusting. Again, just some questions. Where did I act as if there wasn't enough? Like there has to be winners and losers, that kind of thing. Where did I take more than I needed? Or I struggled to let go? Where did I prioritize gain or security over people? And again, just some examples for you to think about. Hoarding time, money, energy, or attention. All of those things can be greed. Greed is not just about money. Resisting generosity, even when I was able to be generous. Making decisions primarily to protect my comfort. So those are all things that are around greed. And again, some space to just do some thoughts and some notes. The next is anger, which is using hurt as justification. Here are some questions to think about. Where did my anger linger or harden? Where did I use anger to control or punish or distance? Where did anger excuse words or actions that actually harmed other people? And so some examples, giving people the silent treatment or withdrawing or sharp words being spoken because, well, they deserved it, so I said the hard thing kind of thing. Replaying offenses long after the moment passed. These are some areas to look for in anger, and just ask God. Don't be defensive, just ask God to search you and to know you. The next is around gluttony, which is not just about eating too much. That's what we tend to think about gluttony. It's often around food or drink, but it's using consumption to avoid emptiness, not just physical emptiness. So here are some questions. Where did I use food, drink, screens, pleasure to numb or soothe? Where did I do that? Where did I go past enough? In what I eat, in what I drink, in what I watch, those kinds of things. Where did consuming replace presence or connection? Those are also things around gluttony. Just some examples. Eating or scrolling or drinking automatically when I'm stressed or just to relax. Binging, but not really getting any enjoyment out of it. You just binge for binge's sake. Choosing comfort or behaviors, like comfort behaviors rather than reflection. I'm just going to do this because it's just like zone out sort of thing. Again, this is not about no boundaries or no self-care. This is about when I use consumption in order to avoid the work of Christ-likeness or to avoid feeling empty or those kinds of things. So again, conversation with God. That's all it is. Next is lust. And lust is a desire disconnected from love and responsibility. It's the idea of objectifying. This lust is often around people, but it's not just about people. It's about a lust for power or a lust for control or, again, drink or fill in the blank. But it's a desire for something disconnected from any kind of responsibility or love. Some questions to think about. Where did I reduce a person to what they simply could give me? Knowingly or unknowingly, where do I reduce a person to simply what they could give me? Where do I seek intimacy without honesty or vulnerability? Where did desire override care or commitment or responsibility? And again, this will play out in multiple ways. Just be brutally honest with yourself. Just some examples. Living in fantasy instead of real relationship. Just going to quickly say this. I think I've said this before. And some of you may not believe this because of your interaction with AI or a younger generation or even an older generation. But AI bots, these you can create these apps. There are apps on your phone, these bots that you can talk with. There's studies being done where people are actually falling in love or developing intimacy with these created bots. They design what they look like. They give them personalities. They don't forget anything because they're AI. And they have these conversations. I read a couple months ago that the number one source of counseling for Gen Z, which is the 20-something generation, is ChatGPT or AI. That people are connecting with artificial intelligence as opposed to actual humanity, which, by the way, humanity is broken and messy, right? AI is exactly what you want to make it as of now. And so examples are living in fantasy instead of real relationships. Are there places where you do that? This could be books you read or series on TVs you watch. Again, not boundaries, but where do you live in fantasy instead of real relationships? Secrecy around sexual behaviors or habits. Where are you hiding those things? And then lastly, wanting closeness without being known. Where do I seek intimacy without being known? And there's just a number of places that this could appear. The next is envy, which is defined here as resenting the good of another. And some questions just to think about. Where do I compare myself to other people? Where did someone else's success, where do I feel like their success diminished me? Where do I struggle to rejoice when something good happens to somebody else, where I should be celebrating? Where do I struggle rejoicing in another's good? Just some examples. Feeling bitter instead of feeling grateful. Minimizing or dismissing someone else's achievements, or quiet resentment toward those with more ease or with more affirmation or more stuff, or fill in the blank. But where do I resent people because of what they have? And so that's envy. And then there's a last page, which is just, it says closing reflection. And this is a sort of a summary thing of what patterns do I notice across these areas? Are there words or themes or ideas or actions or thoughts that are reoccurring through this? And then where are these patterns interfering with my ability to love God and love people, or even love myself? And to just do some honest work and reflection around this. Okay, friends, so this is a fourth step. I gave you two ways, the more traditional way, and then the second way is around these 7 deadly sins. You can do either, you can do both. But I want to urge you to do it. Again, listening to a sermon on a fourth step is not doing a fourth step. And actually listening to a sermon on a fourth step can actually harm you more than if you didn't hear this at all. Because as James says, you're looking into a mirror and seeing what you look like and turning away, or refusing to even see what you look like and turning away. Our goal is to become increasingly more like Jesus, not just to make a decision to turn my life and will over to the care of God, but to actually do the things that will turn my life and will over to the care of God. Next week we go into step 5, and this is a doozy, friends. This is a good one. But you cannot do step 5 without doing step 4 at some level. So this is kind of where the rubber hits the road or meets the road, or the ice and snow in this case. But this is where if you don't do this, you really can't move beyond this. And so want to urge you to take some time this week, over the next coming weeks, to mark off some time and just do this reflection together. And again, that we just pray, God, search me, O God, right? Know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any wicked way inside of me, and lead me to a life everlasting. This is my prayer for you, that you would ask God to search you, that you would do a fearless and searching moral inventory. Peace of Christ be with you.